Does your right to privacy vary from state to state? This is Christina Williams with Just Criminal Law.
And David Mann, legal storytelling specialist. Okay, so it seems to me that your right to privacy would just be your right to privacy everywhere, but maybe that's not true?
That's right. Take, for example, something that happens in Colorado versus something that happens in Wyoming. So I had a client that was in a rental car. They had rented the car in Colorado and drove into Wyoming, and he was pulled over for speeding. Well, in this particular case, the officer asked for his license, registration, and proof of insurance, and realized that it was a rental car. Well, believe it or not, this will raise the suspicion of law enforcement. And so once the officer learned that my client was not in his own private vehicle, but was in a rental car, he took his documents back to his car, to make sure he was valid to drive and there weren't any warrants, and he called for a fellow officer with a canine to respond to the stop. And ultimately, the canine ran around my client's car.
Okay, so the canine runs around the car, and so far everybody, the police are within their rights to do this, or are they now doing something wrong?
Well, in Wyoming, they're within their rights. But if this happened in Colorado, it would be a different story. So the dog alerted on my client's car, and my client did not consent to a search. He said, they said, well, the drug dog alerted, there's something illegal in your car, and so we now have probable cause to search. We're going to search your car. We don't need to get a search warrant. And the client wouldn't open the door. And, long story short, he was caught with over an ounce of marijuana in his vehicle that he had brought up from Colorado.
So if the police had not done this search, then they never would have found this. But because they did, now did this person, this client of yours, believe that he was within his rights to have this in his car?
No, he knew that he had illegal marijuana, that marijuana was not legal in Wyoming. But the interesting thing is, under these exact same facts in Colorado, the officer would not have been allowed to use the evidence that was obtained against my client. Specifically, Colorado requires that before the officer uses a canine to run around your vehicle or to search your property, whether it's a bag or a vehicle, whatever the case may be, they need more evidence. They need to actually believe that there is something illegal going on. They need probable cause. So, they can have the canine run around the car as they did in this case, but this officer didn't have probable cause to believe that my client was up to anything wrong. All he had was, he was in a rental vehicle. That's not probable cause. That's not reasonable suspicion even. And so if this had happened in Colorado, we would have been able to get the drugs suppressed. And, it's illegal to possess more than a personal amount of marijuana, more than an ounce in Colorado. So in this case, he would have been breaking Colorado law as well, but they wouldn't have been able to use that evidence against him to prosecute him because they didn't have probable cause to believe there was something criminal afoot. And just merely running the dog around and having the dog alert in Colorado is not enough. They need more.
Okay, so if I'm hearing this right, in Colorado, they can stop you for a traffic stop, maybe if you're in a rental car too, and then that's all they can really charge you for. But in Wyoming, they can stop you for a traffic stop, you're in a rental car, and then they can sniff the car with the dog and find all kinds of other things, and they're completely within their rights, even though there's no reason to believe you've done anything wrong. Is that right?
Essentially, that's correct. I mean, if they do, conduct that kind of search in Wyoming, they have to get the drug dog there immediately. They can't detain you waiting for the drug dog. But they can do a free air sniff. The Supreme Court in Wyoming has said that you don't have a right to privacy with respect to the air around your vehicle. That's perfectly legal in Wyoming.
Wow. Well, that seems like that should be different. That should be changed. What do you think?
Well, definitely. I think that it should be changed because the whole reason that it's illegal in Colorado is because the person may be legally possessing marijuana, and to have a canine alert and say, well, we have probable cause to believe there's criminal activity here when marijuana is legal, just isn't right. Why should the person agree to that the officer has probable cause at that point? Because, you can possess marijuana in Colorado. The kicker here, and the issue that I brought to the Supreme Court in this case was, CBD is legal in Wyoming and it contains THC, and the canine in this particular hearing, the canine handler admitted that the dog cannot tell the difference between legal CBD that contains THC and illegal marijuana that contains THC. So I believe the same rationale should be applied to the citizens of Wyoming.
Did the Supreme Court agree with you on that?
Well, they didn't look at it in that particular case. Subsequently, they've looked at it and they've said that under the Wyoming Constitution, you do not have an expectation of privacy to the air around your vehicles. So they haven't fallen in line with the rationale that Colorado used. There's a Supreme Court decision out there from the United States Supreme Court that says, if the device used to form probable cause to search a house or a vehicle could detect legal activity, that in particular, we're talking about the images that are able to be seen through thermal detection. If the law enforcement uses this device to see that, you've got something growing with a grow light in your home, that doesn't give them probable cause to believe that you're growing marijuana. That same rationale, if you're following me, should be applied in these cases, because you could be growing something legal. Just because they see that you're growing something in your house with a grow light isn't probable cause that it's illegal marijuana.
Well, I think what you've shown us here is that the laws around these matters can get a little bit complicated. So if someone finds themselves in a situation where they cannot personally figure out the law, they're going to need to call you. And how might they do that?
Sure, we'll include a link in the description where they can call, text, or chat with a member of my team anytime, day or night. Here at Just Criminal Law, we know you only get one shot at justice, so make yours count.